Hey, what's up everybody? Bdf 44 coming at you in another video. Alright, so I figured I'd make a 20-minute therapy session. I feel pretty good. Everything is good on my end. I ran into a brother who was having a tough time. Not to get into his business, but it was funny in a way because while I was in the shower here, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do laundry or not. And the Lord saying, you know, you should probably do laundry today because there may be something, a blessing for you. There may be something that I have for you to do in regards to that process. Didn't think nothing of it. I'm like, yeah, right. That's probably a fleeting thought. Didn't even come from God. Well, I went down there and there was a brother going through a difficult time. He was telling me about it. And so I was able to give him a good word, you know, let him know that I'm praying. I'm going to be praying for him. And, you know, his situation required some support. But when he walked out of the room, I was kind of down, you know. That's how I am at times. Not always like that, but depending on the situation, if someone lays a burden on me, it was a little difficult. I'll hold on to it a little bit. Like a lot of people who are empaths. I don't think of myself as an empath by any stretch of the imagination. This don't happen too often, unfortunately. But this time I was like, yeah, that was heavy. And sure enough, within a couple of minutes, my buddy walked by, and I wanted at the front desk that I always tell you I'm praying about. And she just brightened my mood right back up. And you know, that's how that works. You know, I think that it's really important to look at the timing of things. That's what I told her. I was like, you know, I followed that voice in my head, told me to do laundry. I could have went either way. I could have did laundry or did something else. But I followed that voice because the Lord said he had something for me. And sure enough, because I did, I was able to be in the right place at the right time to provide him the support that I think was welcome, you know what I mean, or needed. And because she walked by at the time that she did, she could have kept walking. But she stopped and said hi to me, as she often does, en route to where she was headed. And she was able to be a blessing to me in that space. And so I told her, I was like, you know, that's what it's about when you're trying to find your relationship with God, or you know, when your faith is teetering. Just remember that the proof of his existence is often found in the timing of things and in the clock, how things sequence. That's where he often is able to reveal his presence. Coincidences, things like that. Just, you know, and that's what I tell all of you guys. If you're in a space where you not sure if you believe, or if you don't know if things are going to work out, or like I was when I found myself in, you know, first come into this place, wasn't sure if God was happy with me enough to make things okay, or if he was going to punish me hard and make this work out horribly for me. I was certain that there was a God, but not really if he was going to come through. But what I learned was, if you turn to him, he'll turn to you. And then from there, the proof of his existence is often found in the timing and the sequence of things. So let that be a guide for y'all who are on the fence or trying to become believers, or not really sure how to find God. It's often in the coincidences that a lot of people overlook as happenstance or coincidences and things of that nature, but are really the presence of him revealing to you that his favor is in your life. It was also something else that I wanted to share. I think I was thinking about in a positive way. I don't know that I always share this point of view because it's really sensitive for a lot of people, including myself. But I was watching an excerpt that's going around the internet on Piers Morgan show that he had, where he was up there with a panel of people, and one lady was Caucasian lady was sitting there saying that she says the N-word as she sees fit, and you know, she would be happy being called a racist or a white nationalist or whatever if it upholds her right to freedom of speech as she sees fit. And you know, it's one of those situations where it's like I find myself pondering the idea of the attachment that human beings have from the willingness to respect other people's concerns or pain or practices or cultures, words that matter so much to you but not to me. We tend to find a strong disconnect in those spaces, and then to harbor a self-defense point of view as it pertains to what it is that we're going to reserve the right to do. In her case, as a white woman, she wants to reserve the right to say any word And so if she wants to say the N-word, she's going to be free to say it, because you're not going to police her voice and you're not going to police her mouth. Now, does she have some supremacist ideologies attached to that? I believe based on her point of view, it seems so. But her point she was trying to make was she's sick of people telling her what she can and cannot say. But from her position, she doesn't understand nor respect wisely enough the pain that she inflicts upon others with her willingness to use that word freely, because she may not have a word pointed in her direction that would garner such a connection to that respect. And I think that's where we all find ourselves disconnected in this melting pot called America. Because, like, as a man, for example, I may not be able to visualize the same respect or harbor the same reflective pain that comes from someone who's been through certain type of assault, because I've never experienced a certain type of assault. Now personally, I actually have been through something, but and you guys know about that. But the point is to reflect as a man, to try to understand why certain words can be triggering to a woman when she hears certain things. Maybe I don't get it. I can't reflect upon anything that would trigger my mind to where this particular word should inflict pain upon her. And because I don't have anything like that in my circumference, I'm rather callous to the understanding that I can say anything I want. You try to police my words. If I want to say the R word, I can say the R word. Don't police my words. But what I'm not respecting is someone on the other end who hears that word and reflects upon what would be to me unprecedented trauma. What would be to her something that happened very recently, or something that she can reflect upon as if it happened this morning. There's a respect disconnect and an arrogance about one's identity that tends to make us callous and welcome the energy that comes from being offensive. And I think that that's what this country has not done a wonderful job of bridging the gap in regards to, because we're so interested in putting ourselves in the forefront of every conversation, is to say, you will not disrespect me or cage me. And because we don't necessarily understand one another as it pertains to what it is I just described, we tend to put ourselves in positions to be deserving of being punched in the face. If I'm being completely honest with you, just straight up, be deserving of being punched in the face. And as a black person, I can legitimately say that there are people who are willing to punch you in the face for saying certain words. Now, maybe you may be the type of person who will be ready to punch back for having that be the case. Or maybe you're the type of person who would take that punch on the face if it reserves you the right to not be policed by other people who may not have policing upon their mouths just the same. Or maybe you don't have a word, like I said, that would equate to such deep resentment. So you think of every word as just a word just the same. So you don't mind being callous with the word that come out of your mouth as it pertains to my pain, because you don't have such a word pointed at your people. This type of disconnect, if we're going to live in a melting pot, can only bring about conflict, violence, and a further disconnect, further callousness to one another's pain. We need not keep that going. Is essentially what I'm saying. We need not keep that going, because it tumbles forward a worse way for ourselves. It tumbles forward unprecedented pains and traumas thereafter, from people not respecting one another and then people lashing out at one another because of it. It doesn't work. And because we haven't seen the worst of it, we don't respect it enough. Hence what it is that we're talking about just in general. Because we don't know how we can get punched in the face. We don't respect the power and the regret of being punched in the face for something that comes out of our mouth. But those of us who've been punched in the face for something that comes out of our mouths tend to respect, or at least seek out that respect that maybe doesn't come naturally to us. So I said all that to say, I want to learn how to respect people from within spaces that don't come naturally to me. I ain't there yet when it comes to certain things, because that's just the essence of being a human being. I don't know what I haven't been through. but to trust, and I think the word trust is really important in this conversation, to trust that someone else's testimony about their pain and what they've gone through can be a guide for my most respectful way of displaying myself, for my most respectful way of, without having been punched in the face, prevent it from happening, prevent being worthy of such a punch in the face. And I think that that's where we need to grow as a country. If we're going to continue to live amongst one another, we're seeing a lot of what is driving us to be self-centered, self-absorbed, without a concern for the pain of others or for the bridging of the gap of connections needed to align us with the empathy that is most appreciated and most welcomes our respect, and most welcomes the self-respect that ultimately we look in the mirror and demand from ourselves every day, or look at others and demand from them every day. We gotta learn to respect being punched in the face without being punched in the face. We gotta learn how to respect what triggers others without needing to experience such trauma in order to have that be something that we respect. And until we get to a space where we can do that from within our positions, we're going to always be resented for our differences. We're always going to be resented for our resentment for not being accepted for our differences. You know, and we need to be careful about the propaganda that wants to display to us an unwillingness from within our groups to connect and respect other people. Because that is a manipulatable propaganda that is placed upon us to keep us from communicating and to keep us at odds with one another. Communication that is needed to help bridge those gaps, and then furthermore come together for purposes that are necessary for us to achieve that freedom that ultimately we're looking for. It's not from within our spaces as individuals, but more so about what's being placed upon us, above us, by individuals that understand this better than we do, by groups that understand this better than we do, that happen to govern us in a lot of cases and happen to control what it is that we pour our dollars into. We need to be a much more attentive to how we can connect on the ground level from within our respective spaces. And how we do that is to learn to respect people's trauma, respect people's cultures, respect people's differences, and most importantly, not put our arrogance in the forefront of our communication, our self-centered nature, our racial politics, our identity politics in the forefront of our conversations. When dealing with people who are just as prideful as us, who have just as much self-respect as us, who have just as much of a desire to be respected as us, or what have you. You know, right to determination, these type of ways of ourselves. We all have that within our respective spaces, whether we experience trauma or not. We all have a desire to be free to speak, and that should be understood without needing to speak certain things that are going to hurt other people in order for that to be achieved. And I thought she displayed, the lady on that Piers Morgan thing, she showed a certain disconnect and immaturity as to understand that the words that you're willing to use do not promote a furtherance to the acceptance of your freedom of speech, but more so more of a resentment for the mouth that you use that right with. And that in and of itself does not make people want to absorb your pain, absorb your position, or ultimately want to understand you at all. You get written off as a racist, as Piers Morgan labeled her. You get written off as somebody who doesn't want to feel anyone else's pain, when you're just simply within your own perspective trying to display a confinement that ultimately is uncomfortable to you. So too is the stereotypes that we are confined by when being labeled what it is that you choose to use to make yourself feel as if you're free of those chains, only to put us back in spaces where we reflect upon the chains of our ancestors. It doesn't equate to what it is that you think. You don't gain any respect. You don't gain any reverence. And most importantly, you put a distance between others and your own humanity, as to where when you have an issue that requires help, you're going to see a lot of people turn away from you because of the presence of your willingness to disrespect others and your lack of desire to understand others when they're expressing to you what ultimately hurts them or makes them triggered. And so that's what I want to say to that lady. Somebody needed to be able to articulate that. No one was able to. I don't know if that was on purpose or just how it goes. But someone needs to bridge the gap between the ignorant and the callous and those who have yet to be punched in the face, or those who have yet to go through something that will make them respect something. Because 9 out of 10 people, once they do go through something, look back and reflect upon their old self that didn't, and feel resentment for that self. Rarely do they still want to stand on those spaces once they have that bridge connecting them to the respect that ultimately they refuse to share with others. Rarely do I find a person who's grown to understand pain still feel vindicated, dying on the hill that disrespects others' pain. Not if they're of something that is respectful to themselves and their last name. And so that's what I wanted to say to you guys, man. I ran into a white person that didn't call me the N-word today. Can we have more credence for the positive in these conversations? Can we have more? I ran into a person that I didn't disrespect their pain. Maybe I didn't relate to it, but I definitely wanted to let them know that I stood in solidarity from within my space and not understanding that pain. Instead of saying, well, because I don't understand it, I don't have to respect it. And I trust that your testimony will help me in how to respect myself when displaying myself to you. I don't need to feel what you've gone through in order to know that there is such a respect to pay to you. And so that's ultimately the perspective that I hope to share with you guys, and to spark the mind of somebody who may be in that space, who don't care to respect nobody else because they don't see no reason to. You can be punched in the face. Then maybe, if you're lucky enough, you will come to understand how to want to respect people from spaces from which you don't understand or relate to. So that's what I got to say to you, man. There were good people that I spoke to today that didn't disrespect me. And they reflect positively in my mind's eye when I look back on them and their people. So whatever display that was on that screen didn't sully their name or their vision of their people in my eyes. Bdf 44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.